train your mind on who you are, not who you want to be. Open your eyes to what's in front of you, then you'll finally see. Then you'll see to be the change. Be the change that you want to see. Just be the change.
Welcome, everybody. So happy that you're here, and thanks for listening to this on the replay. Just so honored and grateful for you to take the time to listen and be the change. I'm your host of Love and Light Unite, and this is the show that you are going to have the inspiration of connecting with incredible peace leaders and change agents and the people who are out there in the world really being the change. And I'm just so honored to be able to bring this to you, because this show has been divinely guided and inspired to continue the legacy of Dr. Wayne Dyer, Maya Angelou, Martin Luther King Jr., Robin Williams, George Harrison, John Lennon, Princess Diana, and so many more. Will carry on this legacy of spreading joy and kindness and love and peace, sharing ways for you to be a hero in your corner of the world, because you truly are a hero, and you can be the change that you want to see in the world. That's the whole intention of this show. And today I am so incredibly honored and excited to tell you that we have the amazing James Twyman here. Now, James, for over 20 years, has been known as the Peace Troubadour and has traveled countries at war to share the prayers of peace from 12 major religions of the world. And he put all of this to music in 1994. He's been invited by peace organizations and the leaders of the country, even in Bosnia, Iraq, Northern Ireland, South Africa, Syria, and many other countries, to initiate world synchronized meditations while battles raged around him. Each time, millions of people participated, and miracles have often followed. James is also a New York Times best-selling author of 15 books and has recorded over 18 albums. We are so blessed to have you here, James. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and share how we can be the change.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so honored. And if you would just, for 1 minute, we're going to do just a short little prayer, and then we'll start. And just like to take a couple nice slow breaths. And we relax in the knowledge that God and all of us are one. That spiritual truth assures all of us that we are never separate from God. Human emotion, however, may feel sometimes that we feel lost. And if we sometimes feel disconnected, we just need a gentle reminder to let go and let God, to realign our thinking with the truth, and remember that only love is real. That's our hashtag that we use all the time, James. And I'm on many different shows and many different networks, and always sharing about the wonderful work that you're doing in the world. I'd love for you to share with our audience, because this is people will be listening to this all over the world. Could you share with us how do you think that you've been able to be the change? You obviously are doing what you feel is your soul's purpose. So how did that get started for you?
Well, I think it always begins with passion. In one way or another, we feel this passion within us that draws us toward that change. It draws us into the desire to manifest our highest good, to manifest from the place of our soul, not just our ego. And so that passion that we feel, it's going to show up in different ways, at least the details for each one of us. But in the end, it really is the same passion, and that is the passion for oneness, the passion for the truth. The truth is we are not separate. The truth is we are not isolated from one another. And when we feel this passion within us to experience that union, to experience that truth, you know, maybe for one person it shows up through music, another person it shows up through art, but whatever the medium, when we find what that is, the way that we can express that passion, then that's the way that we can be the change. So that's the first thing, is that it always begins with feeling and then responding to that passion that we all feel at the deepest part of who we are. And the second thing is it's in small steps that we find ourselves adding to this light, adding to this momentum, being the change even in the little things of our lives, a smile, the way that we speak to one another, the way that we treat one another in ordinary situations, like when we're checking out at the grocery store. I mean, we so often get lost in thinking it has to be big things, like we have to impact the whole world, or we need to do something that impacts thousands of people. And some of us are called to that, and some of us are not. For most of us, it's really more about those moment-to-moment kindnesses, really just being kind to one another, seeing that light within each other, knowing that within each one of us there is this light of peace, of compassion. And if we can look through the veil, look through the masks and all the disguises that we wear, all the costumes, and we can look to that with each person. In fact, one of the things when people ask me, well, what's one simple thing I can do? Usually what I say is, just even for a few minutes a day, walk around wherever you are and just look at everyone you see and bless them. You know, be a blessing machine, so that every single person you see, you're offering them, you know, not with words. It's this very silent thing that you're doing. They may never know consciously what you're doing, but they're going to feel it on some level that you are seeing them for who they are. So it's these little simple things that we do and the choices that we make and following our passion that allows us to be the change that we want to see in the world. And I know that's been true for me. For me, there has always been this passion for peace. And then one day I was reading these prayers of peace. You mentioned them, the peace prayers that come from the 12 major religions of the world. And I was reading this piece of paper that had the peace prayers on them, and I had this feeling that something was beginning to happen. And as I read each one, I literally heard this music, first with the Hindu prayer for peace, and then the Buddhist prayer for peace. And I picked up my guitar and began to play along. And one after another, it was as if the songs were already written. I was just lucky enough to be there to hear them. And one after another, I just played along and started the tape recorder just so I could remember them. And within 1 hour, I had put all 12 of these beautiful prayers to music. And I knew that it was a gift, and I knew that it was something that I was meant to share. And that's when the Peace Troubadour was born, and I began traveling around the world just to share these prayers as a penniless troubadour. And I wanted to be like St. Francis of Assisi, and to just completely be in that place of trust and surrender, and just to share these prayers. So for me, that passion showed up through music, but for each person, it's going to show up in a different way. And I think the key is just to feel it, to follow it, and then to allow it to transform our lives.
Absolutely. And you know, it's interesting because you've been doing these synchronized meditations, and that's really fascinating to me, because I've always known on a intuitive level that meditation is so powerful. And because I've been trying to be a part of helping to raise more awareness around global meditations, I've been doing synchronized meditations with many of my different shows. And I just want to say to our audience, it's been scientifically proven that massive numbers of people focusing positively on a world situation or crisis actually affects the event in a positive way. So James says here on his website, and if you guys want to go and join this beautiful mission, you can go to worldpeacepulse.com, and then you can get all this information, and you can be part of the change. You can share this in your corner of the world. You can share this with your family, with your friends, and be what you think you're passionate about. Trust that passion that fires you, because every one of us is part of the solution, or we're part of the problem. We get to choose, though. We always get to choose. So he says here that our goal is not to focus on what's wrong or out of balance in the world, but to use our shared energy to manifest a new earth with a new situation that occurs somewhere in the world. They go with prayerful focus, and tens of millions of people are ready to add their light to that situation. So, gosh, James, that is so amazing. And I'd love to just hear a little bit about how did you get started with synchronized meditation? And is that something that you've always felt, because I know that there's been such with the Maharishi effect, and there's been studies, all kinds of scientific studies. But for you, how did you get involved with synchronized global meditation?
Well, it's funny how these things happen. Sometimes they happen in spite of your own efforts. They are just ready to happen. And that was certainly true with this. It was back in 1998. My first book, Emissary of Light, had just come out, and I was on a book tour in the UK. And this was at a time when Saddam Hussein was still acting up, and we were right on the brink of going back to war with Iraq, and we had almost just come out of the one under George Bush Sr. a few years earlier, and Bill Clinton was in the White House at that time, and it was looking very dire. And I was in London, and I was on a radio program, and this radio host, who I found out later is always very confrontational, he said, "Okay, Mr. Peace Troubadour, where does this stuff really hit the road and become real, or is it just a bunch of airy-fairy New Age nonsense?" And I just sort of opened my mouth and started talking. I didn't really know what I was saying, but what I said was, I would like to actually go to Iraq and to sing the Muslim peace prayer to Saddam Hussein. And maybe if we could just pray together, a miracle would happen. Those are almost my exact words. And I didn't really think much of it, but then the next day I received a phone call from someone at the Iraqi embassy to Great Britain, and asking if I was serious and would I really like to go. And I said, yes, I would. And to make a long story short, about 2 days later, I was on an airplane heading, to Iraq, and I was able to do the peace concert there at the National Theater. I did not actually end up meeting Saddam Hussein, but apparently they broadcast the concert on national television. And right before I went, at that time, 1998, we weren't as internet sophisticated as we are now. So not everybody even had an email address, but my agent at that time, she had maybe 300 people or so on her personal email address. So she said that she was going to send out something asking everyone to be praying at the same time that I'm doing that prayer vigil, or doing that concert, rather, in Baghdad. And so that email went out, and little did I know when I was over there that began to spread like wildfire, and people were forwarding it on, and before long, there were millions of people around the world who were aware of that concert, who stopped and prayed with us. And I remember it so vividly. It was as if it was raining this prayerful energy. You could feel it. And then at the time, there didn't seem to be any possibility of avoiding a military conflict. But something shifted, and we all felt it. And all I know is that 3 days later, a peace accord was signed, and at least at that time, no one died, no bombs fell. And I wondered if there was a correlation, a connection between the thousands or even millions of people sending their energy and that shift. And so every time almost we've done this, we've seen a shift. Even last week, we asked people to stop for 15 minutes and to focus not only on what has been happening in North Dakota with the Keystone Pipeline, but also with just honoring our water, the sacred waters of this earth, to send energy into that honoring. And once again, at the time, there didn't seem to be much of a possibility. People were not very optimistic about the courts falling on the side of the people trying to block the pipeline. But, well, actually, in fact, right around the time that the vigil was going on, the court decided that it would not stop the pipeline. But then only a few hours later, federal officials shifted, and they put a temporary halt to the pipeline. And then several days after that, President Obama, just I think 2 days ago, made an announcement that they were not going to pursue the pipeline. Well, you could say that this is a coincidence and that this was going to happen anyway. I don't know. All I do know is that when this happens over and over and you see the same thing occurring, every single time that we do a prayer vigil like this, then there has to be a connection. So I truly believe that when massive numbers of people come together to focus their energy, their prayers, their meditation on a given situation and to send their love into that situation, I believe that this is the most powerful force on earth. And as more and more of us come to this same realization and practice this, I think we're going to see a shift at the very foundation of who we are as human beings.
I believe that too, James. And I just want to tell you that your book, Emissaries of the Light, changed my life. I read it like 3 times.
Wow.
I really wanted to embody it. I wanted to embody what it was saying because I could feel that it was a divine assignment. And I knew that I was going to meet you, and I knew I was going to talk to you. And I knew I could feel the energy of, the universal forces bringing it all together. And I knew that I have a gift of networking, and I have a gift of really connecting people and helping people to see their own dream and then love it into reality. And so I was so excited when I had the opportunity. And then I read your book, I Am That I Am. So I wanted to ask you about that book, I Am That I Am. And also just what does I Am That I Am mean to you?
Okay, I didn't write a book called I Am That I Am. Are you thinking of the Moses Code?
Yeah, the Moses Code, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I call it I Am That I Am. I'm sorry, the Moses Code.
I was thinking, is that a book I'm going to write in the future and you're just prophesizing right now?
Oh, maybe.
Not a bad idea.
I know.
Okay.
The CD that you did with Wayne Dyer, that was called I Am That I Am, the CD.
Yeah, well,
but then
the Moses Code.
The book was the Moses Code.
That's correct, yes.
Sorry about that.
The Moses Code, it's funny how that whole thing started, because it began when I saw a movie that I think maybe a few people also saw. It was a movie called The Secret. And I remember when I watched The Secret for the first time, I had 2 thoughts. The first was that it was a very well-made movie, and a lot of people are going to watch this. And the second thought was, this is a very well-made movie, and a lot of people are going to watch this. In other words, I was both excited and really scared, because The Secret was so focused on what I like to call the ego's law of attraction. The ego's law of attraction focuses on what we do not have already. what we somehow think will make our lives better if we do have,
Right.
and then puts all the energy into trying to attract something outside of us that we believe for a moment will make us happy. And this is the greatest trick of the ego, to focus on something, whether it be money or another person or a house, anything outside of us, thinking that's going to change anything within us. And I saw that movie, and I knew that it was the beginning of a conversation, but certainly not the end. And what I wanted to do is to bring the focus back to what I call the soul's law of attraction. So the mantra of the ego is I want. But the mantra of the soul is I am. So I am, of course, being the sacred name of God. I am being really the foundation of who we are. We're not becoming sacred. We're not hopefully one day going to be spiritual or enlightened or whole. That's what I am right now. And so the name of God is my name. It's who I am. And this is really the foundation of the soul's law of attraction. So I wanted to write a book about that. We, of course, ended up writing that book. There's a movie also, The Moses Code. And the funny thing about that was I spent about a year working on the film. And then I was showing it to, right before it came out, like 3 weeks before it was going to be released in hundreds of places. My friend Debbie Ford and a couple of other guys were watching it together to get their impression. And when it was all over, they all said, "Oh, that's nice. It's okay." And I said, "What do you mean it's okay? This has got to be better than okay." And one of the guys, he said, "Well, right now it's just okay. But he said, I have the next 2 weeks off, and if you and I could sit down for the next 2 weeks and work on this, I promise you it would be great." It was one of the hardest decisions I ever made because I've been working on it for a year and I wanted it to be done, but I said yes, and we decided that we would do that together. And we worked day and night for 2 weeks, and by the time we were done, we had reshot 70% of the film in 2 weeks. We had re-edited the entire movie, rescored the entire movie, and by the time it was finished, it really was, I think, such a beautiful film. And the funny thing is that the man who did that with me, his name is Drew Harriet, and he was the director of The Secret. So
wow.
That whole project with the book and the movie and the CD, it all started with feeling this, making this decision based upon my feelings of The Secret. And then, of course, in the end, Drew, who was the director of The Secret, was my partner in putting this message out to the world. I thought that was poetic justice. But really, I think this is the message of our time. And that's why when the book came out and then the CD with the meditation, the one person I kept hearing about that was talking about it constantly and sharing it with everyone that he knew was Wayne Dyer. And I almost knew every time he was giving a big talk, because I would have 2 or 3 friends text me saying, "Oh my God, Neil, or Wayne Dyer is talking about you right now." And people were rushing to buy the CD because of Wayne, and that was when we decided to release it together. So Wayne was a huge proponent of this because he understood the power of the I am frequency, and that's what that CD is all about. So it's sort of evolved and continues to evolve, but I think that working with that I am frequency and chanting those words, I am that, is the most powerful awakening device we have today.
I totally agree. And, this show, the reason this show was inspired because I wanted to continue to show that you don't have to physically be here in your physical body to still affect this world. And so that's why this is a legacy of where John Lennon left off, where Wayne Dyer left off, where, Princess Diana, that even if they leave their physical body, they still have us to work through, to be able to, if we listen, right?
Yes, that's beautiful.
If we pay attention, the signs, the signals, everything's available to all of us. And that's what, I wanted to show people that, that if we all come together, love and light unite, when we unite, we become a louder voice. We become a force, like you said. The strongest force is love, because only love is real.
Yes, beautiful.
It's only, and the thing is that that's why, I feel that each person, every one of us, just like you said in the very beginning about passion, that to me is like your divine assignment, and you can feel it. You know it. You just can feel it. And I guess passion is kind of like your GPS, right? It tells you, okay, yeah, let's go in this direction. For me, I'm so passionate about getting this to the children. I teach yoga and mindfulness and environmental education and animal advocacy with my nonprofit organization. And, just like what you said, I want every person who's listening to this to search your heart right now and know that you're the hero in your life. And you're the hero. You're the one you've been looking for. You've been looking for a change outside, but there's a change in you that's ready to show you what a hero you are, right?
Yes, that's beautiful.
So, James, how would you, okay, we've got some really fun stuff going on coming up, right? You're heading out to New Mexico. So they can just go to the website to be notified of all the different places you're going to be, right? I'll put that in the link.
Yeah, they can go to jamestwyman.com or worldpeacepulse.com. We're going to be keeping that updated. I'm going to be actually just next week, I'm going to be in Santa Fe for the Unify Festival, and we'll be actually focusing a world prayer vigil, synchronized meditation from there to focus on sacred land, the sacred lands, which is another aspect of the North Dakota protest. Last week it was about the waters. This next week it'll be about the sacred lands. And then we're also beginning something I'm really excited about is we're beginning to put together plans for me to be traveling to North Korea probably the beginning of next year. Where this is obviously a very, very sensitive one. So this past year, I traveled to Syria where we did a world prayer vigil from the top of a hill overlooking a village that was held by ISIS. And that was very powerful.
We were on Periscope with you praying.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And so next year, I think that the big thing will be the one from North Korea. North Korea clearly is the place that needs our energy the most because of the way that things are ratcheting up, more and more dangerous. So that's going to be a challenge, and I'll hope that everyone will be part of that. So just go to worldpeacepulse.com, and you can register there.
So again, when you get that kind of a feeling, is that like that you feel like you're being called to that area? You know you're being called.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it any more than that. You just know. There's a feeling of connection. Like sometimes it happens in an instant. Like, okay, that's where we're going. That's what's happening next. And just to trust that and to follow it and to keep your mind out of it. Don't try and figure it out. Let it figure you out. And if we can just stay out of the way, that's where the miracle happens.
That's so beautiful. Okay, well, we just have 1 minute. I'd love for you to just close it out with anything you'd like to say to our listeners. And we know how to connect with you. And like I said, I go on all my social media. Every time you're on, we come together. We're supporting you, James. We love you. We're so grateful for what you're doing. And you're always in my thoughts. I'm so grateful for what you're doing in the world.
Well, thank you so much. Well, the only thing I could say is to be aware and to look